But since the big announcement, Kamala Harris has raised close to $50 million. And that scares me
Yeah.
to pieces. With more on this and what happened moments before um, President Trump's assassination attempt, let's welcome back to the program Jim Iuorio. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Amy. How are you? Good morning, John.
Good morning, brother.
We're good. We're working through some technical issues. So when we talk, we can hear ourselves talk. Twice. Not just once. Can you hear us okay, Jim?
I hear you fine, yeah.
Okay, so tell us what happened with this BlackRock linked firm and what they did moments before President Trump was shot.
Okay, this story is still non-confirmed, and I have some doubts about it, but let's go over the details because the details are pretty damning if they're true. But like I said, I've seen no real verification on it. The talk was that this company, Austin Limited Partners, Austin Private Wealth out of Austin, surprise, right, which has ties to Rothschild, BlackRock, Cheney's, Bush's. That all is true. They do have ties to these funds, Soros. Now, the story was that they had bought 12,000 puts on DJT, Donald Trump's social media platform. And if Donald Trump would have not come out of July 13th fine, ostensibly that stock would have gone to zero, making them a fortune. Okay, they've denied the story. They've come out with an official statement that says this was a clerical error, and our filings with the SEC said that we had, I think I said 12,000. I think it was 120,000 puts. And really, one of our accounts had 12 puts on. Well, that's a big deal. Is it a plausible deniability story? It is somewhat plausible. I've seen mistakes be made too. The one thing that is a little bit throws me off is that supposedly they had another short position in Rumble, which is another stock that probably would have been hit hard if Donald Trump didn't make it out as well. So here's what I think is possible. One, it's possible that it's true and that these stories that are coming out after the fact are all just cover-ups. I think it's almost more that it's being thrown out there. All of us, not us particularly because we're intellectually above it, but the crazy far right are following this story so then they can pull the rug out and say, see, this never happened. So I have some concerns about it, although I don't 100% believe it's not true. Is that a decent explanation, or where do you rate that explanation?
Yeah, no. It just makes me think that there's a larger conspiracy theory
Believe
in
it.
all of this.
Which is
Because normally in something like this, you would have daily press conferences.
Right.
You would have reporters going after the shooter's parents on a daily basis, getting video of them coming in and out of their houses, and none of that has happened. And we still have no one's head is rolled. No one has been fired. Nothing has happened since last Saturday.
And here's the thing that irritates the crap out of me, and it always does, is that if you raise your hand and ask these questions, what are you, some sort of crazy conspiracy theorist? All you have to be is a casual student of history to know that to question events like this and ask yourself, is there something going on, is perfectly reasonable. And every time someone tells me it's not reasonable, like the election, the days after the election, where it was like, well, what do you mean you're questioning the election? No, I just know I went to bed and Donald Trump was winning by a lot, and they kept telling me that, he wasn't going to win anyway. It is reasonable to question these things, and when they say it's not, they're the crazy ones.
Yep.
So repeat, if you have said this, I'm sorry, again, we're having technical problems. BlackRock's connection to Austin Private Wealth.
I believe is real. But then again, BlackRock, now we've allowed them over the last 15 years to be connected to pretty much everything. So it's not the most unusual thing in the world that BlackRock might be connected to them. The fact that it could be BlackRock, Soros, Rothschild, well, that's interesting to me. But again, these things, it happened before 9/11. There was huge put positions put on in the airline stocks. It happens pretty much every day to smaller scales before big headlines break. Options traders always look at options markets and say, someone always knows the story. I'm just not convinced that that's what happened here yet.
Wow.
So where does it go from here?
Nowhere. It never goes anywhere, these things. We just forget about it. There was a week of Donald Trump being humanized. Remember, they just have bent over backwards for so long to characterize him as some subhuman monster. And on July 13th, that was the big story, is that, Donald, we humanize him to the people now. The picture, the iconic picture with the fist, but we're already not talking about that. It's 24 hours after Joe Biden stepped down. And on the betting markets, Donald Trump's odds of winning have already gone from like 66% to 60% as Kamala Harris is building up this huge war chest. So I think to discount her and say, my original thought was start campaigning against Michelle Obama because Kamala will campaign against herself just fine. I'm not convinced of that anymore as long as she has these big backers behind her. So this is the things this morning have made me feel much, much less confident in a Trump win. I still, if I had to bet right now, I'd say Trump wins, but I don't think, and that's one of the reasons, like even in looking at markets, like today, big tech is up. You know, the Democrats have a very special relationship with big tech, so they would do better in a Democratic presidency. You know, her energy policy is probably going to be more aggressive and even worse than Joe Biden's if she wins, based on what she did in California, bullying big oil companies there. So there are certain market things that are telling us, perhaps she has more of a chance than we thought.
Yeah, you just stole all of my thunder of the question that I was getting ready to ask you.
Hey, when someone does that,
it's how do you think that the stock market will react to the news of Kamala? And has the futures market shown us anything yet?
So the futures markets are up today. I found that interesting. I thought it was reasonable when we believed, you know, Trump had a better chance in the first couple hours after the headline broke yesterday. And now I think it just follows through, like sometimes people chase price. I mean, I don't think it's hard to argue against the fact that Donald Trump would be a better president for the corporate sector. He's a less regulation, less taxes. He's already said drop the corporate tax rate down to 15%, which is good policy. So I think that the stock market's initial move was, okay, Donald Trump has a better chance of winning. But now all of a sudden that's changed this morning with the huge influx of money to Harris. But the movement in the stocks is still staying the same. I think, okay, one thing that gets lost all the time is that when Democrats are in office and Democrats control things, it happens to be great for rich people. Now, nobody's ever made me more money than Democrats because their awful economic policy pushes the Fed into a position where they have to keep rates unbelievably and inorganically low, and that helps assets like real estate, bonds, and stocks. Guess who owns real estate, bonds, and stocks? The upper, you know, whatever percentage of people. So there's a reason that all these elite billionaires support the Democrats. Not all of them, but most of them.
Well, Amy, that's not what the video you just played. The video said this is all about helping. J.D. Vance pick was all about helping the rich white billionaire, right?
Right.
That's exactly what we just heard, Jim.
Yeah, the guy who grew up on a dirt floor in West Virginia is the champion of the billions. That's always one of the reasons I vote Republicans is their policies are so much better for poor people, disenfranchised people, the African-American community, because a strong job market is what helps these people. That's why I moved away from the Democrats. Whatever they espouse and whatever they can reasonably defend as far as a policy goes and what it's supposed to do, it always ends up the other way and makes the rich richer, in my opinion.
Jim, what do you think about this? Mike Scott and I were just talking about this. Joe Biden was the union guy. Kamala has no interest. I mean, she has no connection to the union. What happens now to that union vote? Does it go to Donald Trump, or do they come back home to Kamala?
I think most of it comes back to Kamala. I think things like firefighters and police unions, I think the Democrats have irritated them quite a bit, and I think a lot of them could support Donald Trump. But I think the teachers unions, which have grown so powerful, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. So I think if there's a movement towards Trump away from Kamala, it would be in the police and fire. But I don't see it being.
And maybe the private sector unions, the pipe fitters and all those guys. I think they do come home to Trump.
Perhaps that too, which is so funny because I never even think of private sector unions anymore, just because the public unions have grown to this huge behemoth, whereas private sector unions, which I've always been for, I'm very for private sector unions because somebody sits at the other side of the table and negotiates against them. Public sector unions, not so much.
Correct.
All right, Jim Iuorio, we're going to have to leave it there. Host of the Futures Edge podcast and special contributor to Wire Points. Thanks, Jim, for joining us.
Thank you so much. See you guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Augustino's Rock and Roll Deli, a family-owned restaurant, a Chicago family favorite for over 40 years. Why?